Well, welcome everybody. We're so happy to see you. My name is Carlin Crowley. I'm the provost at Ohio Wesleyan University, and the provost is just a fancy word for chief academic officer. It's really a delight to see families and parents and loved ones who are supporting our students. You know, the cliche, it takes a village. It really does. When a student goes to college, the whole family goes to college. So welcome for what will be a really exciting hour. We have tonight faculty members who are going to talk about what learning will be like in the fall, and they're going to share with us something really exciting or riveting about their new modality in a course they're offering. So that's been a highlight. This is our third session with families, parents, students, and the faculty presentations have been a real joy. We've also been collecting your questions for the last couple of days, and in about 20 minutes, we'll start to address those. And if you have additional questions, you can put them in the chat at that time, and we'll also be able to have subject experts meet them and address them in real time. I wanted to let you know that if you miss this, or if you know somebody who's missing this, not to worry, it's going to be recorded and it will be on our website. And you can already see last night's. If you haven't gotten enough after this hour, you can watch 2 more hours that are also on our website. I want to begin by introducing President Rock Jones.
Thank you, Carlin. Good evening, and thank you all for being with us this evening. It's good to be with you and to be able to share some of the work that is underway on campus in preparation for a fall semester that we all know will be different from a typical fall semester, but that we hope will be equally meaningful and important and educational for our students in whatever way they are engaging with their education this fall. As Carlin alluded, and as I often say, when students arrive on campus, when we welcome a student, we welcome a family. And we're especially happy this evening to be able to have you as parents with us and to be able to share with you the plans that are underway. I know that anytime a family sends a student to college, and I have done that 3 times as a parent in the last 15 years or so, it is a significant and momentous time. And it's a time of mixed emotions, but this year in particular, there are natural questions and anxieties and uncertainties because of the time in which we are living with the coronavirus. And tonight we want to share with you in a bit more detail the plans that we have made, and in particular for you to have the opportunity to hear from members of the faculty about the work that they are doing to ensure that our students are fully engaged with their education this semester. As Carlin mentioned, we had sessions last evening with students, and some of you were on with your students for that session. And I was just inspired and excited by what I heard from the faculty last evening, and we have a different set of faculty this evening, and we look forward to hearing from them as well. So thank you for being with us and for giving us the opportunity to share updates, and more importantly, thank you for the privilege that you give us of being able to provide an educational experience for your sons and daughters, the most cherished people in your lives. We honor and we recognize the honor that you have given us, and we want to honor that in every way that we can. So Carlin, let me hand it back to you and we'll jump right into the program.
Great. Let me introduce Linda Hall, who's the Associate Dean for Academic Performance, and she will introduce the faculty. We've asked them to say their name and title and area, and to share at least one concrete example that's exciting about your fall teaching in the modality in which you're offering it.
Thank you, Carlin. I'd like to introduce Ellen Arnold first from the History Department. I'm hoping Ellen can access her mic. So Ellen, if you want to unmute, you can tell us about what you're doing.
Hi, and thank you everyone for including me. I'm Ellen Arnold. I'm a professor of history, and I also am part of the Ancient Medieval Renaissance Studies program and the Environmental Studies program. One of the things that I've spent a lot of my time this summer on and that I'm really excited about is a new class that a team of us are developing, and a bigger team of us will teach, called How to Change the World. And it's a class designed to be a general education requirement for students, and we've designed it to have in-person, face-to-face sessions and virtual sessions for students and faculty who are remote. We are looking at all of the changes that COVID has brought to our world and our communities, and we're having students engage with interdisciplinary methods for understanding how having so many different skill sets and voices in the room and having the benefits of a liberal arts approach to the world is going to help us figure out and help them really figure out where it is that we go next and how we can move away from seeing this as a disaster we are dealing with now to being a path to a future and a forward that they can look forward to. So that's been a bulk of my summer, and we're really excited about the class. We've got, I think, 7 faculty involved in teaching it and a whole bunch more involved in planning and developing it.
Thank you, Ellen. We're excited about this course because we feel like it's something that we are uniquely positioned to do as a liberal arts college. And so it's part of what makes us distinct from some other schools. And Ellen's done a great job with this. Nathan, Rowley, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Hi, I'm Nathan Rowley. I'm in the Department of Geology and Geography. I'm on the geography side of things and also affiliated with the Environment and Sustainability. So one of the classes that I'm teaching in the fall is one that a lot of first year students take with me, and it's the energy resources class, right? And so traditionally my class has been addressing a different energy topic per week, right? So we investigate coal, oil, natural gas, et cetera. And so what COVID has allowed me to do in terms of changing the design of the class is it actually propelled me to do the flipped classroom, where a lot of the lecture stuff that you traditionally use in terms of the contact time was lectures, me droning on and on, in the front with a slide behind me. What I'm planning to do now is that I'm going to cherish the time that I'm actually with the students, right? So instead of having that kind of boring, awkward, early morning kind of, people yawning and drinking their coffee, the idea here is that we would actually be engaged in doing the activities. And so one of the big activities that I like and that students have given me good feedback on is using GIS to do a lot of mapping. So it's one thing to see like a table of, how much coal do certain states burn every year. But the way we would do it is using ArcGIS, which is a software program that we have in our GIS lab in the department. And so that's one way that we can visualize the data. And so once you can visualize the data, it makes it a lot easier for you to, perform analysis on these exercises. And so what I'm going to be doing in this class is highlighting more of that stuff, right? The hands-on, the applied, the interactive piece, and then leaving more of the readings, the reading quizzes, that kind of stuff to be done outside of the classroom so that we can cherish every moment. So that's what I'm doing in the fall.
Thank you, Nathan. And our final faculty presentation will be from Tammy Panhos, and she'll tell us some examples of what is happening in the natural sciences.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tammy Panhos. I'm an associate professor in zoology. I'm also the chair of zoology this year. And as Linda said, the zoology faculty, as well as some of the other natural science faculty, have been working really hard and have spent the summer doing, as we do, research, right? And this time we're doing research on what are the best practices and the pedagogy that we can use that will allow us to offer remote learners as well as in-class learners a meaningful and quality curriculum as we face some of these challenges that COVID has presented. And so I'll just give you a quick example or a few examples of the experiential component that the natural sciences have been working on. So this includes the laboratory time that students have in class. So for example, some faculty are going to be pairing remote students with in-class students in the lab, and pair students can then use a Zoom platform or some sort of conferencing platform to work together on the lab protocol. And share and contribute that way. They're also going to use electronic lab manuals, or lab notebooks, excuse me. So you have a lab notebook, right? And instead of writing it down on paper, it will be electronic and virtual so that everybody can contribute to that lab notebook and keep track of the experiments. Some other things that are going on in the labs. Some labs are going to move to virtual lab components, and it's kind of amazing how good the virtual simulations are these days. I was really surprised when I started doing the research on virtual labs and the simulations, and they allow students to design experiments, manipulate variables, collect and analyze data just as they would if they were in the lab working hands-on. So they're going to be using some of that. Our field biologists are designing field labs for remote learners where students can go outside into their own backyard and use different applications on their phone to collect data and work on analyzing that data as well. And so we're pretty excited to implement some of these different applications and tools and pedagogical approaches to make it a really great semester for everybody in the natural sciences. So thank you.
Last night we met with a number of the returning students, and I was able to thank them both for enduring the spring. None of us planned for spring semester to be what it was, so it was a big transition for everyone. But they also were really good about responding to numerous surveys and gave us a lot of feedback. And I hope you can hear from what Ellen and Nathan and Tammy have told you that we learned from those surveys. We learned from trying out new technologies, and we're now in a position, I think, not just to use technology to make it through, make do and get through the semester, but to enhance what we do. We've learned some new exciting things, and we're looking forward to fall as a consequence. I teach a statistics course in the psychology department, and so last spring I started videotaping some of my lectures and putting them online. Students often tell me for some strange reason that I talk too fast. I can't understand that at all. But they told me there was an advantage to having the video because they could go back and listen to it a second time. And I also learned that when I have a lot of my lectures on video, that frees up other time to do more engaging things. And so I'm planning to build on that this fall as well. So we're really excited about the fall, and we're looking forward to having the students engaged in classes.
Thank you so much, Linda. That's a great transition for me to introduce Ashley Beiser, who's our Associate Dean of Curriculum, and she's going to tell you more about what your learner can expect.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We're really excited to talk to you. And as everybody has said, we're mostly really excited to see your students this fall because we've missed them a lot. And so I just want to answer a couple of questions that have come up in the questions that were submitted to us and sort of give a sense of what you can expect on campus this fall, as well as for those who are remote learners. So some things are going to be different, right? A little bit weird even. It's going to be strange to be teaching with a mask. We're going to be social distancing. Some of us will be in classrooms that are much larger than we're used to being in. And, you know, that's good. Some of us will even be outside. And so that kind of thing, that's going to take a little bit of time to get used to it. But for the most part, things are going to be pretty similar to what they have been. It's not going to change the kinds of, you know, close connections that students are building with their faculty members. And, you know, so I teach a course this fall on American political thought. It's a course where we read a lot of people who have written things, and we sit around and we talk about them. And there are different ways of doing that, right? So to make sure that virtual students can participate and contribute, I'm obviously making better use of online discussion tools, Flipgrid and video discussion tools and things like that. But for the most part, we're still going to be reading text and talking about them. And that's actually something that's really special, I think, to be able to get to know students, to find out what they think, and to have that as part of how I learned from them. So I want to talk a little bit today about some of the terminology that you might have been seeing thrown around, just to get a sense of what you can expect. So most people know what a remote class is. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what we're calling blended or hybrid classes, because we want to make sure that everybody is not coming to class if they get sick. It means that we need to make sure that all of our classes are accessible to remote learners. And so what that means is that our in-person classes are all going to have a little bit of a hybrid nature to them, so that we can interact with students who are with us on campus, as well as students who can't make it to class. And so that means that we're still going to be having set schedule. We've been working really hard on that one, getting everything into new classrooms. and regular on-campus meetings. But we're going to be making use of technologies, as I mentioned, that will allow us to do that better than we have before in many ways, and also to make sure that those students who can't be with us this fall can have a rich learning experience. And so the blended or hybrid class is what students will experience when they're on campus, and about 80% of our classes right now are in that model. And then we also have classes that are fully remote. And so when we're talking about remote classes, we're still going to have what we call synchronous delivery of course content, which means that students should still be available during scheduled class times to interact with their professors and their peers. It won't be every single day, but there's at least one required virtual meeting per week. And what this does is it allows us to really mimic the ways that we connect with students on campus with how we're connecting with students who can't be with us this fall. So I hope that you're getting a little bit of a better sense of the kind of class experience that you can expect. I think that Tammy did a great job of talking a little bit about experiential learning, because we have a lot of students who, are engaged in the natural sciences and labs, students who are in music classes and studio art classes and theater classes. And we've been working really hard in those classes to prioritize our in-person time for those kinds of activities that, really need people to be in person. And so those classes have been thinking about how to be safe in those environments. They've been looking into virtual ways to have remote students participate. And again, I think it's really allowing us to try out new teaching techniques and find ways to do what we do, but in some different spaces. So I think that the most important thing for you all to know is that the kind of close connections that you have, that your students have had with faculty, are still going to be there. We've been spending a lot of time this summer learning more about how to create connections with students, both in virtual environments and in in-person environments. And as I said, the good news is that there are actually a lot of really interesting tools out there, like those you've heard about, that are going to allow us to do that. And we're still going to do the exact same kind of advising, right? So we still have your students going to have an advisor who's going to work with them to find the classes that they need and what works for them. They're still going to have opportunities for, to do research and independent studies with their advisors, to work on theory to practice grants, all those kinds of things that you've come to expect from Ohio Wesleyan. I know that there are a lot of questions, particularly for returning students, about schedules. A lot of students think we're moving things around as we try to get this course in this classroom because it fits there. It's sort of like a big game of Tetris, we've been joking. So there have been some changes to schedules. And I think my big message here is just to please be patient, because we're working on it so that by the time students get here, we're going to be able to get them the schedules they need. Our primary thing that we know that we have to do, because we want to, is making sure that students are on track to graduate. And no matter whether your students are in person or whether they are remote, that is what we're here to do, is to make sure that they get the classes they need. Now, not every class is going to be offered in both remote and in-person modalities. We just can't do that here, but it's okay. All of our classes can be taken by any student, whether they're in person or remote. That's what our faculty have been working towards this summer, and that's what we're prepared to do. So I'm going to leave some more questions about advising to Linda Hall, but I think, as I said, the most important thing to know is that your students are going to get the schedule they need, and they're going to be able to take the classes they need so that they can be on track to graduate, because although we love having them here, we're pretty sure that you'd like to get through here in the 4 years. So it's been really nice to talk to you tonight, and I'll keep answering as many questions as I can.
Thank you, Ashley. We have had some questions about academic advising, and I'll try to address some of those. We did have a larger number of faculty than usual who retired this summer, and as a consequence, we had to cancel some classes. If your student has had a class canceled that they were already registered for, the registrar's office is prepared to help them make adjustments to their schedule now. For other adjustments, especially as students see teaching modalities that they may not feel match the best for them, we're going to ask them to wait until they get to campus. The portal will be open August 18th and 19th, the 2 days before classes start, so students will be able to make adjustments. That will also give them time to connect with their academic advisors and make sure that adjustments will keep them on track to graduate. One of the things that we've been working on is to develop a website that's nearing completion. It's not there, but we're getting it there. A website that will list descriptions of the courses. And this will be both the descriptions students are accustomed to seeing in self-service. So what the primary goal of the course is about, a little bit about the content area. But we also have descriptions that faculty have written for each course in each section about how they plan to approach the course this fall, how they will, if it's a hybrid course, how they will blend the online components and the face-to-face components, for example. If it's an online course, how much will be synchronous versus asynchronous. So we'll have those descriptions up so students can take a look. That I think will give them a better sense of what they're getting into before classes started and give them a chance to make any needed adjustments.
That's so helpful. I think though we're even a little ahead of schedule, can we hear from Dwayne Todd, the Vice President for Student Affairs? And several families have asked questions in the chat that he's addressed some of already. Dwayne?
Thank you, Carlin, and good evening, everyone. It's good to be with you. I recognize some faces and names from previous forums, so I hope you're learning some additional things this evening that we'll cover that you didn't hear before. I want to talk about a number of topics that kind of fall outside of the academic area that I'm sure are on some of your minds and some of you have submitted questions about ahead of time. Let's first talk about our testing protocol. We will have students, all students who are coming to campus to be in-person learners will be tested for the virus upon arrival. We're planning on doing a rapid test process that allowed for us to have results in 15 minutes or so through an antigen testing method. Those supplies are not going to be here in time. And so we have had to make a shift to PCR testing. That was a plan B that we had been planning for all along. And in fact, we needed to use it. So we have switched to plan B to do PCR testing, which is the same method of sample collection. So the way your student will be tested is through a nasopharyngeal swab done by a healthcare professional. And those swabs will, instead of being analyzed on campus, they will go off campus to a Columbus lab where they will be analyzed in a high complexity FDA certified environment. Those results will be back in 12 to 24 hours. And we're able to get better timing on that in part because we don't have to ship them to a lab outside of the region, which is the case for a lot of PCR testing. So it's being done locally. This is a lab that is not one of the big mega labs. It's a lab that really is focused on us right now. And so we are sure that we will get those results back as they have promised us, 12 to 24 hours. And we will get those results out to students as quickly as we can. That does mean then that students will not know their results by the time that they are checking into the residence hall in the way that we had hoped. Almost all campuses are doing PCR testing across the country. And so this is still sort of the general way that campuses are doing on arrival testing. And so we're in good practice there in terms of the way that this is best handled. So with that, though, that does mean that a student may find out later that they were positive and they have already moved into a residence hall room. So test results will come back the next day and we will take action based on those results for students who might need to isolate into either an on-campus location or an off-campus location if they prefer to do that. But we have isolation facilities prepared for students where we will provide daily checkups on them. We will provide food delivery to their location, and they will have all the support that they need while they're in isolation. They can also continue their classwork remotely while they're in isolation. There are also students who may need to quarantine, either because they have been exposed to someone with the virus or they develop some symptoms that they want to get checked out. So we will have quarantine locations on campus as well. Those locations are designated with a private bathroom and a private bedroom. That's just for them until their test results are back, or until the health department tells us that it's time for them to come out of quarantine. So the health department in the county is really the authority on determining who needs to be in quarantine and who needs to be in isolation. So we take our directives from them, and we are in almost daily contact with our county health counterparts. They will know who has been tested positive, and they will take those steps then to direct their next steps. We will be a partner with that in helping the student go into the kind of location where they need to be, and take care of their needs while they're there. Some of you may question, what happens if my student is in a room with a roommate and neither one know if they're positive or negative at that point. And that is a scenario that will exist this fall. We have heard from the county health department even today that just because a student is in a room with a student who later has a positive result does not necessarily mean that the roommate will go into quarantine just because they were in the room. They will do the proper contact tracing, and they ask a lot of questions about, what activities have you been doing with this person? Have you been in close contact? And close contact is identified as within 6 feet of somebody for more than 15 minutes. So just because someone passes someone in a hallway or shares a bathroom or something like that with someone, that is not necessarily a close contact. And so they will ask the right questions to know whether quarantine is appropriate for someone who is around someone who is positive or not. So I want to kind of share that it's not an automatic quarantine decision if a roommate test is positive. That being said, we also know that some of you will want to take some extra precautions, and you may decide that you want to stay with your student till the next day, so that you can make it, if your student tests positive, maybe you want to go home and isolate at home rather than on campus. That is a perfectly understandable choice. Some of you will want to just be a support for your student in that time. So if you choose to stay in a hotel, we do have some CARES Act funds that are left from the spring when the university received federal allocation for those funds, and we will provide a $100 reimbursement to a family member who may choose to stay in a hotel room overnight because their student would like to stay outside of their residence hall room until the results are back. So we want to help share that information with you tonight, so that may help allay your concerns about a financial cost that might be involved if you want to take an extra precaution and have your student stay out of the residence hall room until the results are back. The other topics that have come up, and I'll just kind of keep moving through some of these that you might be interested in. There are families who've asked about visitors to residence halls. We're not prohibiting people from coming into the residence halls who don't live there. We are asking that those be very limited engagements. If there's going to be a visitor, we ask that it just be one at a time. We're trying to reduce the number of bodies in the residence hall at any time, so that we can reduce some density and the possibility of the virus coming in from outside. So if you're going to visit your student and they're living on campus, that's perfectly fine. It would be really great if they could meet you outside and visit with you outside, or go maybe into your car if you're going to take them to dinner or something like that. If you do want to visit the student inside the room, or they want to have a friend over, let's make that a limited engagement, and really one at a time. We're not allowing students to have overnight guests until further notice. Just again, we want to reduce the number of people, not only in the buildings, but within the actual residence hall rooms at any one time. And in terms of move-in, there've been a lot of questions about whether more than one parent can come with the student for move-in. Yes, of course, you can bring more than one person on move-in day. Again, similar to what we were talking about earlier, only one person can help the student at one time move into the residence hall, and it's fine if you want to swap out. So you do the first hour, and then the next person, you tag team it, and we'll do the next hour. Make sure you take the hour that doesn't include the television and all the other heavy things. that, work that out ahead of time. But yes, it's fine to swap out. I would, again, just ask that you observe our request to only have one visitor, one guest with a student in their residence hall at any one time. Other things that some people have asked about involve dining services. We are making lots and lots of preparations around dining services to do this safely. Students will still be able to come in to a dining facility and eat. There will be more limited seating, as you can imagine, in the dining seating areas with a fewer number of chairs per table. We are installing a lot of barriers in these spaces, the plexiglass, walls, and some tables will have plexiglass like cubicle things on them to kind of divide up the seating space on the tables. So one more layer of precaution, so students just have the ability to sit at the same table together and perhaps not be at risk in that way. We're bringing in tents across campus. Some of them will be for classroom space. There will be a large tent that is available for outside dining that is right outside of the Hamilton William Campus Center. It'll be lovely out there most days until it's November, and then we'll put some heaters out there and we'll call it a porch fest. So those opportunities are there for all kinds of options that students may want in terms of seating. The big ballroom that we have that some of you are familiar with called the Bennis rooms, the entire large room is being turned into seating for dining. We will also set up another food distribution spot in there where students who have particular dietary restrictions, be they allergies or vegan, vegetarian, other kinds of limitations in their food, that's going to be a special spot for that purpose. Anyone is welcome to get food from that location, but those who have special dietary needs, that'll be a central place where they might want to check first to see if there's something there for them that day. Other locations will provide grab and go food where a student can just pick up a sack or a box and take it anywhere they want to eat on campus. We will have all of our other dining venues, which include the Bishop Cafe, Merrick Hall, Coffee Bar, also has food there, and the Science Center Cafe will all provide opportunities for students to use their regular meal plan to get a meal rather than having to just always use dining dollars there. So again, we're opening up more dining venues to be used on the meal plan and a lot of flexibility, a lot more flexibility than we even typically offer students, so they can make some choices about where they eat and how they use their meal plan in those ways. We will continue to offer 24/7 dining. Smith Hall Dining Hall is our big dining hall on the residential side. It is going through a massive facelift right now in connection with our construction project with Smith West. So that actual facility, the dining hall part of it, will not open until September in some time. So 24/7 dining is being opened up in the Hamilton Williams Marketplace. So students will still have 24/7 dining in that location. And then when Smith Hall reopens 24/7, we'll transfer back to that location. There have been some questions about things like what students will have to sign when they come to campus, and what are you requiring of my student in that way. The university is not asking students to sign a liability waiver. I want to make that clear. We're not asking your student to sign away anything legally in that regard. There are a few things we'll ask your student to sign. One is a release waiver that will allow our testing company to notify the university of the results of your student's viral test. Another form will be a form that allows the university to communicate with staff in our health center about COVID-related matters. So it'll be very specific around topics related to someone's healthcare related to COVID. And then we're going to ask students also to complete a course, an online course about COVID education. It's about a 15 to 20 minute online course. Faculty and staff will be asked to do the same thing. It's embedded with some content related to Ohio Wesleyan. And in there, students will see our We Are OWU campus guidelines that highlight the most important things they need to do to protect safety this fall, At the end of the course, they'll be asked to make a commitment to abide by those expectations. So it's a simple, check a box. Yes, I am committing to do this, and send it off. And those are really the kind of form related things that students will be asked to do this fall. Mask wearing is going to be required across campus in any indoor location. The exceptions are for faculty and staff in their private workspaces when they're the only one in that space. This is similar to those of you, who work in an office environment. When you're in an office by yourself and it's a private office, you don't have to wear a mask in most states. But if someone enters that office or you work in a communal space, you need to have a mask on. Same at Ohio Wesleyan. And students will be asked to abide by the same principles there. So if they're in a public location of a residence hall, if they're in their class, if they're in a lounge, they need to have a mask on and they need to stay 6 feet apart from people. If they are in their private bedroom with their roommate and only their roommate, they don't have to wear a mask. We're treating those roommates as sort of a family unit, the way your family gets treated, together at home. You don't necessarily have to wear masks together there. If anyone enters that private bedroom that's not one of the roommates, they need to put a mask on. Everybody needs to put a mask on. These rules and guidelines are really meant to abide by CDC expectations and what we know about how the virus spreads and what's effective in preventing spread. So it will be uncomfortable at times for people. We all, I don't know anybody who really loves wearing that mask, but we will do it, and because it's important to protect each other's health. Faculty and staff are doing the same thing, and we will remind your student if they forget to do this or they're not abiding by those expectations. We will remind them, and we want other students to remind them too, because it'll take all of us to make sure we are able to complete the fall term successfully in person. So that when students are outside, kind of traveling to class on their own or sitting out reading a book and that kind of thing, studying under a tree, they don't need to have a mask on if they're by themselves. If they are in close proximity to somebody, we're going to ask them to put a mask on at that time. We just want to avoid any kind of spread potential in that regard. But we certainly don't expect students who are outside and not engaging with other people. They don't need to have a mask on at that time. So that is, those are some of the things I wanted to cover at this moment. And I'll turn it back over to Carlin.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. And we see that parents and families continue to have some questions in the chat, and we're doing our best to keep up. We know you're concerned about your loved ones. So be patient as we keep trying to answer them. If we could pull up the FAQ, I wanted to remind all those on the call that we have so many answers to questions already. And so if you think you have a question that hasn't been answered, I urge you to try our FAQ. It's voluminous. You can get lost in it, but somewhere there's likely an answer to your question if you don't get it tonight. So just to be aware of that. It's updated and we'll continue to post answers there. So please view that as a resource. That's important. As we get ready to close, President Jones has some words.
Thank you, Carlin. I know that there are a lot of questions in the chat, and some of them are for Dwayne, and he'll be answering them as he can, but we'll also get to some of them after the call, and we'll be posting the answers online. I wanted to share with you just a bit, and this expounds on some of what you've heard before, a bit about the commitment that we are asking people who will be on campus this fall to make. It's a commitment that we're making to one another, to ourselves, and to the university. And we're using the acronym WE-RE-O-WU. And perhaps you've seen this, but I'd like to just run through it quickly. First, wear your face covering. As Dwayne indicated, we're asking every person on campus to wear a facial covering in any indoor setting other than when alone in a private office or for students in their residence hall rooms. And even outdoors, unless sitting alone, isolated from other people, we'll ask students, all of us, to wear facial coverings or walking down the jaywalk or moving from building to building, or faculty and staff moving from their cars into the academic buildings. We'll ask people to wear the facial coverings. We know that that is one way to help reduce the spread of the virus. We'll ask every person on campus to evaluate their health daily. We'll provide a mechanism in which people can do this. We'll ask them to take their temperature daily. We'll ask them to answer certain questions related to is there a cough? Is there do they have the fever? Do they have shortness of breath? Other signs that might indicate the virus. And if they do, we'll ask them not to be out on campus, but if they're students, to be in touch with the health center. If they're members of the faculty and staff, to be in touch with their physicians. Someone asked in the chat if we would be providing masks for students. We'll actually be providing a kit to students when they arrive on campus. It will include a thermometer. It will include a couple of masks. It will include hand sanitizer and some other things. So each student at check-in will receive a kit with those things. We are OWU. We ask to avoid unnecessary travel. When students arrive on campus, we hope that they will stay on campus as much as possible. We know that some students have jobs in town and will need to leave campus for work, but we're asking students to avoid unnecessary travel and preferably not to return home, certainly not to leave the state until we get to the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, when people will have the opportunity to return home and be remote for the final week of the semester and for final exams. We think that one of the ways in which we protect the campus is by limiting travel to and from the campus. We'll be maintaining physical distance. We'll be staying 6 feet apart from one another, whether we're walking on the jaywalk or sitting in classrooms or in a dining hall. Again, keep physical distance like facial coverings is a very important tool for reducing the spread of the virus. We're asking one another to engage with our peers in protecting our community, to be willing to talk to one another if we see someone who is not abiding by the principles that we've set forward, to be willing to gently remind them of the principles and of the importance of these principles. We do this not just for ourselves, but for everyone else, and in particular for those who are most vulnerable, who because of age or health condition or other issue may have a particular vulnerability to the virus. And so we're asking the members of the campus community as a community to engage with one another in protecting the community. We're asking people to observe university group size limits, and these limits will vary depending on current guidance from the local health district and from the state of Ohio, from the Centers of Disease Control. They will vary depending on the nature of the setting. Group sizes outdoors might be different from group sizes indoors. Group sizes indoors will vary depending on the size of the space and the nature of the gathering. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. We've all been hearing this since March, and we know, again, like wearing facial coverings and keeping physical distance, that hand sanitation is a critical step in reducing the spread of the virus, and we're asking people to observe this. And then finally, use kindness. As I mentioned at the beginning of our session this evening, we understand that this is a time in which many people feel anxiety. This is a time of great uncertainty. It's a time when people can feel afraid, and it's a time when we need to be kind to one another. If we need to remind one another of the guidelines to which we have agreed to abide, we can do so with kindness. If we see someone who is having a particularly difficult day, we can reach out with kindness. And it's a part of what it means to be a community in connection with one another, to share kindness, and in particular in a time like this. So we are OWU. We'll be saying to students over and over again, we are all in this together. As we are in this together, we share responsibilities with one another and for one another. We share responsibilities for Ohio Wesleyan. We share responsibilities for the community in which we're located. And I believe that we can do this. We can do it because we're all in it together. We can do it because we are OWU. And we look forward to bringing students to campus and to having a really wonderful fall semester. We acknowledge as we go into the semester that none of us knows exactly what will happen. And we will be monitoring conditions daily. And if we have to make a change, we will be prepared to do so quickly But our hope is that with these guidelines in place and with the extraordinary work that so many people have done to prepare for the fall semester, we can have a semester with our students on campus, as well as with meaningful educational experiences for those who are remote. So thank you for your presence with us. And Carlin, I'll turn it to you to conclude us this evening.
Thank you so much, President Jones. I just wanted to let everybody know that as of today, we are 15 days out until the first day of class. And at another institution, I used to oversee faculty development, which is the office that helps faculty continue to grow and learn in terms of their research, their teaching, and their own learning. And this faculty is more well prepared than I've seen. They've spent so much time this summer in so many workshops that they've helped learn about and design themselves, working in teams and groups to practice innovative pedagogies. They've learned so many new things that they are both experts in their fields, and they're also learners, which is really important to have and have modeled for your students, right? That teachers are also always learning. And so what your student will experience this fall will be exemplary, and they're really eager to be with your children and their students and to start the fall off right. So thank you so much for this time together. Again, this recording will be on our website, and we'll continue to answer some questions in the chat. And we'll see you soon in whatever capacity, whether in person or remote. Have a great evening. Good night.